Get ready to be inspired and make patches shine and showcase like you've never imagined. Hey, ScouterStan, let's talk a little bit about patches. We love patches and badges. Depending on where you are in the world, it depends on what you call them. In the United States, for many, many, many years, we've called them patches. Badges are rank badges and position badges, and they're actually earned. And there's specific places that those patches go. It's amazing how many different kinds of patches there are. And if you're confused or trying to get an idea of where to put patches on a uniform shirt in the United States with the Scouting America type of uniform, you need to see this video. That one actually covers where position patches go, where rank patches go, that kind of thing. So it is the go-to video for all of the placement of the standard patches. Now today we're going to talk about all the fun patches that are out there, and there's far more fun patches than patches that you earn. So it's a little bit different type of thing, and the different places where you can showcase those. This video is really exploring unconventional places to put patches to kind of showcase either achievements or things that the scout is passionate about. Patches can be all kinds of different things. And as I mentioned before, the uniform shirt is one thing, but there are other places that these patches can go that are not so much crazy. Now, what I'm talking about as far as crazy places to put patches, you'll find out. There is places for achievements. Say, for instance, you have a scout that has done a 50-miler award, and there's no place on the uniform shirt for that. So they're either kind of forced, if they want to display that they're kind of forced to choose a spot. And a very common spot for many youth is the back of the merit badge sash. Now, the merit badge sash is where all of the merit badges go. Now, this is just a joke one that we use for adults, okay? There's all kinds of funny merit badges out there for adults. So on the back of this has all of the achievement awards, like NOACs and of course NYT, the Scoutmaster's Merit Badge, very popular. So these are things that you could put on the back of the sash. I never wear this. I'm an adult. It's not part of the adult uniform, but it's just for fun, and it is always a conversation starter when you could put those on there. I like it because when I go to these courts of honor, of course the scout goes in front and he's wearing that big nice merit badge sash, but as soon as he or she turns around, they see all of the things they've done: mile, swim, all the different mountains they might have climbed, all the different things. It tells a story. Patches and uniform tells stories all by itself. It's a visual it's woven representation of achievement. Now, here's another place, is the campfire blanket. This has been a tradition throughout scouting since its very beginnings. Patches can be placed on a blanket that scout leaders and youth can curl up in around the campfire, and it too has all of these different things on them. I've got a pile of patches that I'm planning on putting on my actual blanket. I got Scouting University, I've got some TINA stuff, I've got a really cool TINA thing here. I'm planning on putting these on my blanket. So that is one of the very common things you're going to see in scouting. You're going to see back of the sash stuff. You're going to see other things. Now here is another one. This is actually my OA sash. This is what I wear, and this only has the embroidery on the front. No patches are meant to be put on the back of the sash or on the front. The only exception is the NOAC. The NOAC anniversary patch is the only one that can go on the front. So that's pretty set in stone. Now again, we're getting into the uniform stuff, but on the inside, when I'm wearing this sash, I can easily get into a conversation where I could flip this over and show patches that I earned when I was in the OA. Like this is my that's my original patch from when I went through as an ordeal member with the Makajuan Lodge 40 up in Wisconsin. So that's where I started. And then, of course, as I got older, I got into the Tipasaw down here where I live. And then I've done other things like a Lego mat, and I put my Indian name on it. I did all kinds of stuff to the inside. Okay, so that's totally fine. That's possible. You can also do that with your merit badge sash. You can put things on the inside. The merit badge sash, unlike the OA sash, typically this type of sash doesn't go in the laundry. Okay, you're never really washing this. Okay, it shouldn't actually get dirty. So the patches can be fastened on very inexpensively. It can be glued on, which I did with all the patches here, and then I've gone as far as even stapling the patch on in place, because it's really meant for display. Okay, it's not meant to be really worn or washed. Okay, and that's the thing about sashes when you're dealing with the merit badge sash. That's a little bit different. Now there's also, of course, when you're dealing with campfire blankets, you have vests, you have different kinds of jackets that you could also put patches on. So it's a lot like the blanket. But that seems to be the standard. Let's get into some of the really strange places where you can stick patches. 10 crazy places to put patches. Probably one of the craziest one that I've actually witnessed was one that the scout had it on his boot, his shoe. I have seen it twice. I noticed that some patrol patches fit beautifully over some of the logos on tennis shoes. So I've seen patches glued on, sewn on, riveted like blue jeans rivets onto shoes. I've seen it. So boots, I had this one scout who had one on the back of his boot. And I got talking with him and says, that's just an unusual place to have a patch on your boot. And he said it was really through necessity. The boot, one boot, got a slash in it, like a razor cut right in the leather. And it started to separate, started to tear on the ends. So this patch facilitated a repair. And he loved the boots so much he just wears them all the time. So they fit perfect and everything, but this repair was a council strip. He was able to put the council strip almost like a Band-Aid over this cut on that one boot. And because, there's two, he had to do it to the other shoe so that they would match. So it was so cool. And, that was a way to display and repair his boots. Now, there's a lot of scouters out there that will put patches on the inside of their jacket. That's something they can do. There's a lot of pros and cons to a lot of that. If you're going to be doing this on a garment, you need to sew them on. You can't glue them on. The garment has to be able to physically move if it's being washed, the person wearing it. Patches are often very thermal. They have this beautiful plastic stuff on the back of the patch, and that alone makes it very thermal. Okay, so putting it on the inside of a jacket will definitely give you a higher R value. So it is definitely going to make it a much warmer jacket. Number 3, let's talk a little bit about water bottles or canteens. Now, when I was in Scouts as a youth, the canteen had a cover. The canteen was basically a metal container, and it slipped down into a sleeve. Putting patches on that sleeve was not a problem. You could glue them on. You could definitely sew them on. That was something that was done. It really identifies your water bottle, because when you get you go to camp today and you see 20 different water bottles and they all look very similar. Having that unique patch on there identifies it as that particular Scouts. So it's a good way to identify your equipment and display or showcase achievements. Number 4, hats. Hats are a great place to put patches, either on the rim of the hat, on the sides of the hat, not covering up any logo or something on the front, even the top. You can put patches, sew them on, glue them on, whatever you need to do on a hat. Now, again, hats you may not wash as often as you would, say, a jacket. So keep in mind, you can glue things onto it. If you do glue things on, do not put them in the dryer. A lot of times the glue will actually come loose, and when that patch comes off, it evenly coats everything with the glue. Okay, so don't put it in the dryer. You have to let it air dry. So that's a little hint from experience. Number 5, of course, backpacks. Okay, day packs, all these different things. That is a classic place to put patches. They make patches just for the backpack. For many years, they made leather patches with the holes already put in it so you could sew them onto your canvas backpack. That is a very common place to place patches, especially trail patches like the 50 miler or the natural stuff that's out there, all the different achievements that are trail based, and these are great patches to put on your backpack or your day bag. Day bags are very common today. Where you go to an event or something, it might have your water bottle in there, it'll have all these different things, and they kind of blend in. It's like that water bottle problem. So you want to make it unique. Put some very unique patches on there that will definitely identify it as your bag. Hey, before we go any further, I want to make sure that you are invited to come to the live meeting. The live meeting is on the first Sunday of each month at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So please join us. Now, you're going to have to adjust for whatever time zone you're in. But please join us and join in. That's a great way to ask questions, and I'm there to answer them. Also, I want to personally thank all of the patrons on Patreon for their continued financial support. Also, if you would like to become a channel member right here on YouTube, hit the join button and go through that process. It's a great way to help fund what you see here. If you don't want to do a monthly donation, that's fine. We have a thank you button. Just hit the thank you button and make a one-time donation. That is always appreciated. And let's get right back to it. Number 6, we have so many collectors out there that know about binders. These are just a 3-inch ring binder with little baseball card sleeves in there, with the patches actually put down inside of these books. Because of that, they can actually divide them off depending on what they have. They could have one chapter's OA stuff, all of their Order of the Arrow chapters thing. The next book over could be Jamboree. The next book over could be council strips, and so on. It can be all different things. And these are displayable. You can actually set them out at events, at things, where people can actually flip through them and go, oh, I know that patch. I was at that thing. it's a great way to display patches and be able to trade those patches. That's another thing. So trading in that regard. Now they can even do things like book covers. I've seen woven fabric book covers for the for scouts that have a zipper that goes around. I've even seen ones that not only a zipper, but it had an area where you could crunch it over and lock it down with a clamp, and it that you could throw in the water. I've seen a lot of waterlogged handbooks, but it's a handbook cover, so sew things onto it. You could glue things onto it. You're not really going to be washing it. It is going to remain kind of musty dirty. So go ahead and put some patches on it, and that is totally okay. Number 7, we got sleeping bags. You could put patches on a sleeping bag. That's totally fine. Sleeping bags are quintessential equipment. So I wouldn't recommend putting hundreds of patches on a sleeping bag. Now this is going to change your the amount of temperature that you can handle. So if you're putting this on a zero bag, that may not be the best idea because you're not going to have any wicking at all. Okay, so with those patches, the plastic that's on the back of the patch, that's going to keep a lot of moisture in the sleeping bag. So you got to be strategic. You might put a few on. I wouldn't cover the whole thing with patches. That's going to change the amount of wicking temperatures that it can handle, and it is a lot of problems there. Also, it's going to add weight. If you're going to take that sleeping bag on the trail, you're carrying it. So every ounce you can cut, that's less you have to carry, right? So, and some sleeping bags are very, very expensive. They're specifically designed for vents and different things in the sleeping bag. They're very high tech, and they're very expensive. They might even be filled with down or different incredible materials that keep that sleeping bag. So be careful putting a bunch of patches on a sleeping bag. Now, your camp blanket that you have at the fire, that you can put over your nice sleeping bag so that you're not, you can still stay warm under that. Number 8, we got wall hangings and displays that you can put together with patches. Wall hangings, if you go to a camp and they have these pavilions that a lot of scouts use during the summer, they'll have things hanging up in the cabin or the pavilion where they were spending the summer. And that is a great place to kind of highlight different things. You could have the unit number on there in patches. You could do different things on the actual tapestry, for lack of a better term, that hangs down inside these things with patches. You can put those on there. Again, they do not have to be sewn. You could glue those on because it's not something you wash. That is one of those things that a lot of units do. Now, in your own home, that may not be appropriate. So there are different framing ideas. I'm going to put up a picture over here in this area of this. This is actually a frame that my father put together, and it was the 50th anniversary. I have it in my scouting den. That's where I'm at. This thing has got the full set of the 1960 Jamboree celebrating the 50th anniversary of scouting. So this is, I'm going to put it up there so you can actually see it. But that's a frame. Patches are flat. You can put them in frames like a picture. There's some that are incredible that have different depths. So you may have to get a shadow box or something of that nature to really display them appropriately, because they may have a thickness that most frames may not be able to accommodate. So that's something that you got to add on to that process of displaying patches or collections. Putting patches on scarves, neckerchiefs, that is a very interesting way to display different things. Now, one of the things you have to keep in mind, if you plan to wear the scarf, you need to avoid the far ends of the scarf so that you can actually fold it over and be able to wrap it around. That's this floppy part. If you put patches in there, it's not going to roll up right. So, so the real place is in the back. That's the peak where you're going to put the patch. So those are the patches. Now, there is a caveat to that. I believe it was the 100th anniversary jamboree, national jamboree, where every camp area had a patch. And if you took the scarf and pulled it out and displayed it, like in a large frame, you could actually put the patches in to where it's ghosted on the scarf. That's, and then of course, what that neckerchief you don't wear, but it was a way of displaying patches that matched up to what was ghosted on the actual scarf, so that you could actually put those in there. It's amazing. And of course, it was the 100, and it was all the different camps throughout the jamboree. Amazing, amazing. You could do that with some things like Philmont. I know that a lot of people will go to Philmont and do a special neckerchief for their contingent that goes, and they might do a patch or an embroidery, and then everybody signs that so it stays flexible. That's a great thing to display. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use scarves, bandanas, neckerchiefs for displaying patches. Number 10, the camp chair. Camp chairs typically have a cloth back or a cloth seat or a canvas of something that makes it very comfortable and flexible to fold up. A camp chair is wonderful to put a patch on, typically in a place where you're not sitting on it when you're using the chair. That way, like the back of the chair, perfect spot to put NYLT patches and all kinds of neat little things you can put on there. That's something that can be done. But typically it's not where it would be on the physical armrest or the actual seat of the chair. That's usually where you don't put those things, because as you move around, you're going to be tearing them away. Even if they're sewn and glued and cemented, and they're going to come off. And that may even, the glue, if it gets warmed up, it might even get on your clothes. So not a good thing. So I don't recommend putting it into areas where you would actually be touching the chair. But there's a lot of area on the outside, so that are very visible, very viewable for patches, and you could sew those on. I'd recommend sewing, not glue, for many reasons. Sewing is a far more flexible, and if the chair is in the rain, it's not going to affect the glue or whatever other fastener you try to use. So that's up to the individual. That's up to the scout that wants to put patches on a chair. Now, arrangements are completely up to you. If you want to do one of those 10, these are just ideas, and I'm sure that in the comments there's going to be some unique things in there. But that is really up to the individual. The individual decides what arrangement they want to put together on their camp blanket, their jacket, their shoe. Doesn't matter. They can do all these different things and make it fun. Make it fun. There's so many cool patches out there. We need to get those out there and see that. And it's at minimum a camp blanket. Let's start trying to promote camp blankets. Those are great. Those are fantastic to have. Very inexpensive blankets can be turned into a place to display all those wonderful adventures and all those patches that represent that. It's a great thing. And I want to make sure that the youth kind of get excited about that. Later on, they're going to find their camp blanket, and guess they're going to be like, oh, I remember that trip. I remember this. It's a great trigger for all of those great memories they made. as a youth, even adults. We can, there's a lot of times you hear us around the campfire laughing about stories that happen, and being able to point to the patch, that means a lot. So definitely look into that. Now, when you're choosing what to put your patches on, try to keep in mind how you're going to put them on, how you're going to maintenance the item. If it's a blanket, it's going to end up in the wash. I'd recommend sewing the patches on instead of any other fastening system. In the wash, they can kind of twist and move, and that's something they need in a camp blanket. Camp blankets get dirty, they get sooty from the fire, from a campfire, so they get washed, and that is very important. On the other hand, if it's on, say for instance, a camp chair, you don't have to worry about that. It might get caught out in the rain, but it's not something you wash, like a bandana or different things that may not need washing because they're never really worn. So the more you wear them, the more you should sew things on. Now, there are some exceptions, like the sash. Sashes, whether it be the Order of the Arrow or a merit badge sash, these are optional things you can do. You can sew those on or you can glue them on. If you're not going to be washing them, like a merit badge sash, most merit badge sashes, once they're sewn on, they never goes in the laundry. It's not really worn outside of a ceremony. Okay, so that is a very common thing that doesn't get washed all that often. So glue might work just fine. On the other hand, OA, we wear the sash the whole day. And we get barbecue sauce on it or blood or something on it. That happens. So it does get washed. And it's white, so, or off-white, SAH. That's the thing. That's the thing about the sash. So that thing does get washed, and I would recommend anything that's going to be washed periodically, definitely sew it on. Needle and thread is the best thing for that sewing. Now, I want to encourage all the viewers of this video to come up with something new, okay? Try to put those patches into something. If I missed it, and I probably did, put it in the comments. I need feedback. I think feedback is a gift, and I want to hear from you. I want to hear what you really strange places you found scouts and scouters putting patches. That is so important that we promote patch trading and patch collecting and getting those things viewable. Thank you so much for all that you do in scouting. And if you'd like more information, check out that video over there. That'll give you more information about patch collecting. So amazing, okay? Definitely do it. Until next time, I'll see you on the trail.